So today I'm going to introduce the Forestry Act 2014. Some of the main changes that the Forestry Act brings with it, the process that goes into filling out a licence form, and also the decision, the felling decision tool, which is available on our website now. The Forestry Act began to be drafted in 2010 and was finalised in 2013. Then the final processing going through the Dáil was actually finished in 2014. With that, it brings in a single tree licensing process. It increases the list of exempted trees, which can be felled without a licence, and it also increases the duration of a licence up to 10 years. This can also be extended for an extra 5 years if it's desired. It introduces a timeline for the felling process of felling licences, which is now at 4 months. If this timeline can't be reached, the applicant will be let know, and the reasons why this 4 months is breached will also be communicated to the applicant. Public consultation is a big one for the Forestry Act now. It's a legal requirement and it has to be done to keep everything in line with the Aarhus Convention, which was in Denmark in '98, which relates to the environmental matters and people's right to know about what's going on. There's also no role for the Gardaí in a felling licence application anymore. Some of the exemptions which you might be familiar with now are the exemptions of trees within 10 metres of a road, trees which have been grown for the purpose of their foliage or as Christmas trees, and some naturally regenerating trees in a field that might not have been cultivated for the last number of years can also be felled without a licence. Short rotation coppice species like willow and poplar can also be felled. This exemption doesn't cover trees. Even though it's close to a road, it's not a public road and it's a decorative avenue. These are not covered. Champion trees are certain trees that have significance in the landscape won't be covered by the felling licence. They would still have to be licensed and they're not exempt. The public consultation is probably the one that you're all familiar with now, as site notices have to be erected in the case of AFOR as the application is being made. This allows for a 30-day period where for the public to make submissions and observations on the plantation. These submissions and observations will feed into the decision-making process of the district inspector. After this happens, the district inspector makes his decision and that decision is published on the website. There's a further 28 days before the licence can be acted on. This is to allow for appeal. The appeals process can be a condition on the licence or the actual granting of the licence itself, made by an applicant or made by a member of the public. The felling licence too has a 30-day period after advertising when it needs to be consulted upon by the members of the public giving submissions and observations. Once the decision is made on a felling licence, there's a 28-day period, and after that, a site notice has to be erected prior to and for the duration of the felling licence or the felling operations. This is key to letting members of the public know that the operations that are ongoing are a licence process. Some more exempted trees you can see here are trees within 30 metres of a building, but this is only in the case when the building was built before the tree was planted. And other ones are land management tools that you can use in the felling of hawthorn or blackthorn species, trees that are not exceeding 20 centimetres in diameter when measured at 1.3 metres. A few other ones then that as part of planning permission, if they need to be felled, can be done so if it's designated in the planning permission. The felling licence application form is a new form that we have some to give out, and we have guidance notes to go along with them. This is key to filling out the felling licence application form because all the information has to be present and correct for a felling licence to be valid. As you can see here, there's a couple of different sections. Form 1A is for the landowners of the plantation. These have to be in the felling licence application. If an agent is acting on behalf of a landowner, this section has to be filled in with the company number and the relevant details. The felling licence itself then, if your plantation is split up into a number of plots, this can be seen in your Form 2 certified species maps. It's a good place to go. And you can see that there's a number of different plots and there's also different land use classifications and harvest type classifications. These are classified in the guidance notes. So you have conifer high forest, broadleaf high forest, mixed high forest, and the makeups of each of the land use types. The harvest type is also described, the first thinning, second thinning, third thinning. It's worth noting that because it's a 10-year license, you may have one or more thinning processes covered under the one license, and these should be specified within the harvest type. The species details, again, if you have more than one species within your plot, they both have to be specified in this section. Each has to be given a line to itself and the percentage canopy makeup. The number of stems for a plantation is then classified in the per hectare species. If you're felling single trees or a line of trees, the actual number of trees is given. The fell year and fell age is important because if you're applying for a couple of different felling applications, as in 2 thinnings as you can see here, the fell year is the year in which you wish the operations to take place, and the fell age is the age of the crop when the felling operations is taking place. The volume is calculated as a meters cubed per hectare for plantations, and the meters cubed per tree if it's a single line of trees. This is an example of a single tree or a line of tree application. You can see the actual species and the actual number is filled in, and then the volume per tree and the fell ages as well. Replanting is a condition on all licenses, and this has to be carried out in the case of a line of trees or single trees. The actual number of the trees that to be replanted and the species are specified. When it comes to a plantation, the per hectare number is given. These per hectare numbers and the standards which have to be reached for plantation forests are all specified in the felling document and reforestation policy. The code for the species objective is conifer or broadleaf or mixed high forest or continuous cover. The top 3 are typical clear fell operations, and the second one, when it's continuous cover forestry or other types of operations, a management plan will have to be produced and signed off by the local inspector before this license will be granted. Any questions you have can be found in the guidance notes or the reforestation policy. The standards which have to be reached are laid out in the reforestation policy document. This is typically the number of trees to be put in the ground to optimize your crop when it is to grow. The easiest thing is to get it right from day one, and the optimum plantation number should be reached at that stage. The final part of the form is the declaration. On the declaration, if the landowner is the applicant as well, it's only one signature. Whereas if there's somebody acting on behalf of the landowner, then they have to sign it in the licensee section, and the landowner must sign it to stipulate that he is okay, or he or she is okay with the agent acting on behalf, and everything is above board. The mapping requirements are not that rigorous. While we say it has to be one is to 50,000 or one is to 5,000, a screenshot from Bing Maps or an iForest map just showing the general area of the plantation is needed, and then an actual orthophoto of the land on the ground to show the very specific boundaries that will be covered within this license have to be shown as well. The felling decision tool is very important for a lot of landowners who are coming up to clear fell stage. It gives you an idea of when is the right time to fell for you. You put in some certain parameters like the species, the yield class, and if you're unsure about the yield class, there's a yield class generator, which you just click on the blue writing which is under it. You enter in roughly the top height and the age of your crop. You can select a different type of rotation, either target tree size or financial, and it will spit out the various different fell years and how much you could potentially make. Or it's not very specific. It gives you more a vague idea of when your crop is increasing in value and when it will decrease again. Here you can see a chart that is generated from the input data. It gives you the financial rotation, which is the year where it'd be most beneficial for you to fell. In this case, it's at 41. The H of MMI is mean maximum annual increment is at 52. But again, this is longer than the financial rotation because it doesn't serve the plantation by growing on that long in an economic terms. There's also a chart generated, which is just another visual aid so you can see when the financial rotation, in this case, of your crop is and how much more revenue you can get after the financial rotation as opposed to felling early. So in summary, the main changes to the felling now are it's a single license application. The public consultation has to be considered, and that is 30 days before and 20 days after the license. There's an increase in exemptions for increased ease of land management for farmers and landowners all around the country. And when you're filling in your application, the key thing is to read the application form before and read it after it's completed. Read the guidance notes in conjunction when you're filling out the applications, and there's also plenty of examples online to help with the filling out and to reference when you're doing it. All this information can be found on the Department of Agriculture, Food and Marine's website. And if you have any further questions, we can be got by post or by email in Johnstown Castle, or you can pick up the phone then as well. And that's it. Thanks very much.